The NFL is now a league where one, two, maybe even three wide receivers on the same team can be fantasy viable. So at this point, how do we figure out the guys that we should realistically be targeting, especially when it comes to some sleepers later in the draft? It's all about that insane efficiency. Headliner Nation, Jake and Kyle back with another insane efficiency video. If you've been missing any of this series, we will link it down in the description below. We've done volume monsters running backs. We've done insane efficiency running backs. We've done volume monsters wide receivers. Today is all about efficiency. And don't forget, we'll talk about those quarterbacks and tight ends as well before it's all said and done. Jake, let's jump into the most efficient wide receivers from 2026.
Yeah, because like you said, with so many options at this position, we need to find efficiency because after the top names are off the board, efficiency is what really matters.
And we say it all the time with wide receivers, right? Like it's, hey, we're doing our top 36 wide receiver rankings, but realistically, there's like 50 names that we could put inside the top 36. So we got to utilize some of these stats. Let's kick it off. The first category that we're going to talk about is going to be yards per target. Alec Pierce and Jameson Williams being at the top of this list with how they're big play guys is no shock whatsoever. Even a George Pickens. I think some people might be a little bit shocked that JSN is up here this high.
I mean, considering he saw like 8 million targets, the fact that he was still producing yards per target at this rate, that is super impressive. Kind of similar to Puka, right? Both those guys getting huge targets, but they're also just doing something with it. And I think a lot of times people forget about targets are great, catchable targets are even better, and both Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua benefit from solid quarterback play to the point where they're getting a lot of catchable balls. And that really plays a part.
Yeah, and there's a name at the bottom of the list that you have to wonder, is that name going to be a lot higher in 2026? And that's Emeka Egbuka, because your big play guy, Mike Evans, who's realistically been that guy there for the last umpteen years, is now gone. Emeka Egbuka, is he going to fit that role? I don't think it's going to be Chris Godwin because he's never come close to that type of role. You've got Jalen McMillan, but I don't know if I want Jalen McMillan to fill that role over Emeka Egbuka. I would love to see him, much like if Seattle can do it with JSN, why can't Tampa Bay do it with Emeka Egbuka?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I think it's going to be a slightly steeper hill for him to climb to get there, but he's for sure possible. Just like the guy right in front of him, Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson has an opportunity to have a much better year when it comes to yards per target because there's no way that his targets can get worse than what they were last year. And no, that's not just a dig on JJ McCarthy. There were other quarterbacks there as well. Yeah. If he can have the stability of one quarterback for most of the year, we saw prior to last year, the dude's a lock for 1,000 yards with almost any quarterback. Just give him some consistency. He'll have that hopefully with Kyler Murray and could skyrocket up this list for next year.
Yeah, moving on to yards per reception, the same two guys are at the top of the list again, Alec Pierce and Jameson Williams. And, you know, we'll just come out and say it. We'll talk about these two guys together here right now for the most part. Alec Pierce and Jameson Williams are best ball players, in my opinion. Yep. They are guys that are going to be really, really tough to own in redraft leagues. You saw it with Jameson Williams last year, like 3 games where he had 0 fantasy points. But then he had like 6 games where if you had him on your team, you probably won your week.
Yeah, and that's going to be said for both of these guys. This year, once again, Alec Pierce got paid in the offseason. Sure, he probably sees more volume this year than last year, but he is a great 50-50 guy. He's a guy that you want to throw the ball deep down the field to. He's not one that's going to go out and get 15 receptions and rack up huge 150-plus target seasons. Being best ball players was probably the best way that you could explain both of these guys because they will be a headache when it comes to redraft.
Yeah, Nico Collins being this high, he's been this type of player since he entered the league as well, so things like that aren't super shocking. We just talked about Emeka Egbuka a second ago. How will he jump in yards per target? Well, he jumps all the way up to 6 in yards per reception. You get the ball in his hands and he showcased that he can do some good things.
Yeah, that right there immediately should tell you Okay, if he's getting yards per reception, if he gets more targets, he'll get more receptions, which means he'll produce more yards. So if he does see a huge target increase this year, with his efficiency, you're probably what you said earlier. He could skyrocket up the list as well.
Jamar Chase being 21 and 27th in these first two categories is weird. Especially because Joe Flacco, when he stepped in for Joe Burrow, played well last year.
I think it's just that there were so many targets
Probably
that it just like diluted the number a little bit, because you're right. Joe Flacco was just like, there's no one on my team right now other than Jamar Chase most weeks that he started.
Throw it up, baby.
You just throw it in the vicinity of where that route was at. Jamar will come down with it. And I think it's just the target number was so high, it diluted some of the averages. That target number could come down this year a little bit if T. Higgins can finally stay healthy.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. Would the Cincinnati Bengals be in a better position right now had they drafted Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase?
That's a good one. I'm going to say no.
No.
However, man, I don't know. Jamar Chase is just such a huge part of that offense that sure, they may be a little bit better up front, but I mean, Joe Burrow's still throwing 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns a year when he's healthy. Sewell may help him stay healthier longer. I feel like there could have been some other moves to improve the offensive line over the last couple years that would have helped just as much had they not swapped those draft picks.
Honestly, that's a debate for a different day, so I'm not going to go too much more into it. But you know what shouldn't be a debate, Jake?
Tell me.
That is, at the end of this video, using the link down in the description below to go get our 2026 fantasy football draft guide, because this thing is chock full of so much information that my head spins just trying to look through it.
Yeah, there's a ton of information. Anything you need about almost any player is in there. We've totally redesigned the draft guide this year, and it's not just like a boring write-up on a player. You actually can go in. I'll even show it on my phone, Kyle. You can go in with like certain players. Where am I at? I'm right here. And you can find all their information and past perform. I mean, you can anything you need. Injury history, it's all here at the touch of a finger on your phone, on your desktop, on your iPad, on your Kindle Fire, on your BlackBerry, on your what else has a screen, Kyle?
On your Motorola. On your Nextel.
On your Nextel, on that Nextel on your hip. Yeah, they got it everywhere. So if you're looking to dominate fantasy football, you need to click that link.
Absolutely. Link in the description below, tfhdraftguide.com. There's so much information already in it that you can really get a head start on your fantasy league right now.
Yep.
Yards after the catch per reception. You know, we talked about Emeka Egbuka and his jump between the first two categories. He shows up here at number 6 overall. Jamar Chase, we talked about him the first couple of categories being a little bit lower, but we see the playmaking ability right here. He's 7th overall. The one name that does stand out still at the very top here is Jameson Williams, because we talked about him being a deep threat, but this also shows the fact that no matter where he catches the ball on the field, the dude can just blow up a huge play.
Which is crazy, right? I mean, they have so much volume that goes the way of Amon-Ra St. Brown that even if just a little bit of that could migrate towards Jameson Williams, he's going to produce with it. He doesn't need just the deep ball. He just needs targets, because once the ball is in his hands, he's difficult to bring down. Not because of stature, but because the dude is freaking blazing down the field.
There's a guy that we'll talk about a little bit more towards the end of the video, but I am going to bring him up real quick. And it's one of the reasons why, because someone mentioned it in a comment over the weekend. They were like, why would Jordan Tyson worry you about Chris Olave? And listen, I had Chris Olave as a must-have wide receiver last season. So I love myself some Chris Olave, but he was not very good in terms of efficiency. And a lot of it had to do with volume last season. And you already have to assume that Jordan Tyson, being as high of a pick as he was, is going to take some of that volume away. So can Chris Olave be more efficient to help make up for that? Because if he can't, I think he's going to have issues sustaining his draft capital where it is right now.
he would probably end up being one of those guys that is touchdown dependent each week. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he doesn't have enough yardage to give you a solid fantasy day. If that's the case this year with Jordan Tyson, adding himself to the offense.
Yeah, so that's one thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit more towards the end. Here's one thing that I like to throw in there: drop rate, because a lot of times people are like, well, catchable targets, like, are they drop rate? This is going to be a number that signifies the number of times a wide receiver has a drop. So is it hitting them in the hands? Most of the time that is going to account for targets that are not catchable, so you don't really have to worry about it here with drop rate. But at the very top of the list, a guy that could be traded any moment, has not been traded as of this recording in the moment, but may be by the time it comes out, AJ Brown. Drop rate of 1.3%.
I mean, it's not really been his problem. The problem is getting consistent volume to him and having to fight with guys like Dallas Goedert, and then you got Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley, a lot of options in the offense. Man, if he goes to New England, I will probably have him ranked higher than I've ever had him ranked in fantasy football since he entered the league. And
it's going to be hard to keep him out of the top 12 for me. Very hard.
It's going to be hard for me to probably keep him out of the top 10. I'm not afraid to say it. I think
got the chills.
I mean, him in New England could create massive fantasy upside. Yes, the schedule is more difficult, which means the games are closer or they're losing, which what happens then? You throw the football more. So like that is a match made in heaven.
We talked about Jameson Williams. He's at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. So maybe he is getting the targets, Kyle. Maybe he's just dropping them.
He's just dropping some. But a big area of improvement here that needs to be made is Emeka Egbuka. That would be number one. Yeah. Number two would be Tet McMillan. I think for both of these guys to take the next step, we need to fix that drop percentage. We can't be dropping over 9% of our targets.
I mean, it's also surprising, but not surprising, because I remember games last year with multiple drops in the same game. CeeDee Lamb was another one who last year was just like, dude, why are you dropping the football so much?
Which was not something that's been an issue for him.
No, but last year it was just
nowhere.
Last year I can remember multiple games where there's multiple drops in each game, and there's just like, what is going on? It's not that the balls were even like that hard to catch. He was just not able to bring in passes that he has in the past, and I'm hoping that was just a 1-year thing, and that he can go back to what he had been for years before that, because that's not normal, and that really limits a high-end wide receiver's ceiling, right? Because now all of a sudden that drop, which would have taken him to 16 fantasy points, now all of a sudden he's only got 7 for you, and that's a problem at times. So big plays account for a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah, that one drop could be the difference between a wide receiver 1 week and a wide receiver 2 week. It could be the big difference between a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 3. Yep. In fact, it could be such a big difference that you look at your roster at the end of the week and that one drop makes you go, oh, why did I start this guy when I had so-and-so on my bench that I should have started instead? Yeah, those drops, they can be hurtful. Yep. Moving on, contested catch rate. So what wide receivers in the NFL are winning those contested catches, those hard fought battles between cornerbacks, linebackers, nickel corners, whatever it may be? Stefon Diggs at number 1 is interesting, and you have to wonder, if he didn't have off-field issues, would he already have a contract?
Probably. I still think he finds himself somewhere after we get through all these OTAs. I don't see why he doesn't land somewhere. Mm-hmm. Where is that going to be? I mean, obviously there's rumors out there. I've heard Washington's name a lot. I would actually like that for him to go there if possible. Not surprised with the catchable contested catch rate. He's somebody who's always kind of fought for that. When he's on the field and he's getting targets, Stefon Diggs is probably underrated, in my opinion, when it comes to just that portion. A great route runner. I'm not overly surprised seeing names like Puka Nacua up here. That's why Puka is hurt a lot with nagging injuries. He puts his body on the line to get everything, so I'm not surprised there. Michael Wilson, Parker Washington, Jameson Williams, that's kind of surprising to me. I mean, Michael Wilson is very intriguing this year because what kind of role is he going to have? Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. has been underwhelming, but does Michael Wilson really get a shot this year? And if he does, who's the quarterback? Is it going to be, the mustache, Gardner Minshew? Is it going to be Carson Beck? Do they actually bring back Jacoby Brissett? There's so many question marks there that he could be an intriguing name late in drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. That contested catch rate, just like we talked about with drops, catching that 50-50 ball, that one pass could be the difference between a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 day.
Now, I will say at the bottom of this list, Tet McMillan needs to get his crap together because he is too big of a receiver to not be better at winning contested catches. That needs to be
100%.
Something he improves on in this offense. It has to be.
Devontae Adams and T. Higgins at the top of red zone targets. No shock whatsoever.
No shock.
Devontae Adams made his living in the red zone last year and frustrated every single Kyron Williams owner as well in the red zone.
He was the goal line back in LA.
T. Higgins has been that way his entire career. When they get into the red zone, such a good contested catch, big-bodied wide receiver. We're going to him in the end zone. Juwan Jennings being up here at number 3. Got to wonder how this impacts the Minnesota Vikings, who he lands with. Because when you get into the red zone, Jordan Addison isn't really that guy. Justin Jefferson can be. But I'm having a hard time remembering the last time Minnesota had a guy like this to kind of take over those red zone targets.
Well, here's the thing is all the defensive attention's looking at Jefferson.
Yeah.
When they get down there, they're looking at Hawkinson, they're looking at Jefferson. Juwan Jennings could be a dark horse wide receiver that he may not rack up a lot of volume, a lot of catches, a lot of yards. But if at the end of the season, I see Juwan Jennings with 10 touchdowns, I will not be surprised.
Absolutely not.
I think he could be the forgotten soul in that offense, and defenses are just going to we'll let Juwan Jennings beat us to try to stop the other guys. And I think he's capable of doing it. And Kyler Murray has had plenty of exposure to Juwan Jennings. They've both come from the NFC West. They've seen each other for years. It's not like this is just some guy that he's never been around. They've played against each other for a long time.
Jake, would you like some breaking wide receiver news in the middle of a recorded video?
Did it just happen?
Yes. Not
no,
AJ
no.
Brown, though.
Okay, I was like, wow, what happened?
Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the New York Giants. I'll be honest, I didn't think I was ever going to see Odell Beckham Jr. on a field ever again.
Now, I will say that this, obviously, we are recording this on June 1st. This will not come out until June 3rd, so this is 2 days old by the time we've said it. Yeah. But at the time of recording, that just happened, and honestly, this is going to be a completely different video, Kyle. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Not because of just Odell Beckham, but because of this and other things. I am probably completely out on Malik Neighbors in 2026.
I agree with you there.
Different video, not just because of Odell. We'll talk about it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, just on red zone targets again, real quick. We've mentioned this with Amon-Ra St. Brown in some other videos, the fact that he gets so many targets in the red zone. I think that's a big reason why you can have the argument of Puka Nacua or Amon-Ra St. Brown, because Devontae Adams steals a lot of that touchdown potential that Puka has, and Amon-Ra St. Brown makes up a lot of that in that area. But I didn't even realize it until like 2 minutes ago that Jamison Williams is number 7.
Yeah, both of them in the top 7. So when they get in the red zone, they're throwing to one of these guys. And
even Pierce being here at number 8.
Yeah, that's
a pretty big deal for a guy that just got a massive contract.
Yeah, that means that they're going to look for him in the red zone. I also think we see a lot of Tyler Warren there this year as well. No more Michael Pittman. Josh Downs, not really viewed as a red zone type of guy. Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren could eat this year as well.
Yeah. Next statistic is yards per route run. For the amount of routes you are running, how many yards are you averaging on those routes? So if you got a guy that's running a ton of routes, but maybe not getting nearly as many yards as you would like, if you take a look at like a T. Higgins, a Cortland Sutton, guys kind of at the bottom of the list. Cortland Sutton, I would like to believe in Cortland Sutton. I would, but you look at a number like this and you have to be a little bit worried about the addition of Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to get better. I don't think the situation is better. Now they have to spread it around even more, but he's still going to be out there running routes. all the time. Like, he's not coming off the field. He's going to be out there. He's just not going to be highly targeted, and that could definitely hurt him here this year. The top of the list, though, obviously not a huge surprise with some of these names. I think Zay Flowers is underrated. Everybody hates Zay Flowers. He's one of the most hated wide receivers. Every time I say the name Zay Flowers, there's haters in the comment section.
People seem to be upset about it.
I don't understand. Sure, he had some blow-up games that inflated some numbers, but the dude still scored 10-plus fantasy points 10 times last year. So he's not just completely a waste, and he finished like the wide receiver 7. So the dude deserves a little bit of respect in fantasy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they could have done a little bit more to help him be even better, honestly.
Yeah.
But they didn't also add a ton of competition for him either this season. Points per snap. If you watch the running back video, you already kind of know about this. How many snaps are you playing bait? And then take into account how many fantasy points you are scoring as well. Are you playing a ton and not scoring a ton? Are you playing a ton and scoring a lot? The big guys at the top: Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Devontae Adams is this high based on the touchdowns.
Yep.
For Stephon Diggs, this number actually isn't very shocking to me because his snaps were really managed at the beginning of the year because he was coming off of that ACL injury. But it still shows that from an efficiency standpoint, when he's on the field, like we talked about with contested catches, right? Like when he's on the field, he produces.
Yeah, and it just continues to show up here towards the top with guys that are high-end finishers. You mentioned Puka and JSN, Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, George Pickens, Chris Olave. These are all the top finishers on the year, and Stephon Diggs' name is in there. Now, I don't want to spend too much time with Stephon Diggs because he's technically still unemployed, but if he becomes employed to a team that has a need at wide receiver where he falls in to an immediate target share, he will be a name that so many people forget about this year that you could stash on your bench as like your wide receiver 5 that could have flex appeal after the first month or so of the season.
Justin Jefferson finishing 30th. That's not going to happen again this year. And if it does, the Vikings have way bigger problems.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Unless, and I'm not trying to say Kyler Murray is the savior, but Kyler Murray as a quarterback is better.
Has to be better
than what they had last year. Not going to be an all-pro. I'm not going to say that he's going to lead the Vikings to the Super Bowl, but he has to be better, which only makes Jefferson better.
Yeah, and I'm still a JJ McCarthy truther. I still think he's going to end up being fine. Maybe it takes another year or two, but I can even agree with the fact that Kyler Murray has to be better, even if it's slightly better than what they saw last season from the quarterback position.
Yeah, you may be one of the last truthers. It just doesn't look good. You know what I mean?
If I have to ride with him into the sunset, I will.
That's right. I mean, do what you got to do.
He still has beautiful hair. Moving on to points per touch.
I wouldn't know anything about hair.
Alec Pierce at the very top. Part of the reason why he got paid the way he did this offseason is because when they get the ball into his hands, technically good things tend to happen.
A lot of yards, a lot of points, right? Didn't get it to him very often, but when they did get it to him, dude did something with it. And that is what is important. They let Michael Pittman go. They believed in Alec Pierce. They paid him $100 million to do so. He's still not 100% healthy, which is not so much of a worry just yet. If his ankle still looks stiff in a month, July 1st, I'm going to start to worry a little bit. He's got some time still, but yeah, when he gets volume, he's done something with it. But you don't forget this. He's also never been the guy. You know what I mean? Now he's going to be entering weeks as the number 1 wide receiver in Indianapolis. He's going to get more defensive attention. He's going to get higher quality defensive attention. Yep. And we've seen numerous times in the past when players go from like a wide receiver 2 or 3 on their team up until the number 1 spot, they just can't handle that. And I'm not saying Alec Pierce can't. We just don't know for sure yet.
And let's go ahead and just move on to the end here where we take the average of all of these scores and we put them together. Who ended up finishing the best across the board when it came to efficiency? How about George Pickens?
Motherfucking Pickens.
We didn't even really talk about this guy that much, and he finished with the best score at 7.33.
Maybe we should talk about George Pickens more. Now, it did help that CeeDee Lamb missed some time. That really helped. That really bumped up George Pickens. If that doesn't happen this year, the numbers come down. But he's also on a franchise tag and playing for a fat contract, Kyle, in an offense that's going to throw the football a lot still. George Pickens is going to be super expensive because of what he did last year. I would be okay with Pickens probably being my number 2 guy. I don't know if I want him to be my wide receiver 1. I just don't know if I do yet.
Yeah, and for those people that like him enough to be your wide receiver 1, I think it's good to see him this high in efficiency because could he take a step back? Absolutely, but this is the type of number you want to see when you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb next to you because it's kind of like the Lions, right? Like Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown together. It's kind of like the Bengals, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins together. Like you're going to have a lot of targets go to both of those players. And because of that volume really not being as sustainable on just one of those guys because of multiple options, you want to see them be better with efficiency. So George Pickens being here is good. Nico Collins, he's been a guy that consistently finishes pretty high in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
And does he have competition for targets? Yes, but I wouldn't say it's high level competition. Like, I don't think Jaden Higgins is a top 24 wide receiver talent-wise in the NFL.
No, I don't either. And I don't think, like you said, he has competition. It's not at the level of some of the other guys' competition. Yeah. It's not a CeeDee Lamb for George Pickens. It's not a Devontae Adams even for Puka Nacua. You know, I mean, they have high-end options across for them where Nico Collins has a bunch of talented prospects, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's about CJ Stroud and can he bounce back? Because if CJ Stroud can even be part of what he was his rookie season, Nico Collins should easily find himself in the top 12 every single week.
Agreed.
Should. JSN being here, no shock. Puka being here, no shock. Alec Pierce, once again. But a lot of it has to do with those big plays, right? Like not a ton of volume, but when they get the ball to him, good things tend to happen. Part of the reason why he was paid. But again, if you go from being the wide receiver 2, 3-ish, because I think you could argue that even Josh Downs at times could have been argued as the wide receiver 2 behind Michael Pittman. It was really a rotating door the last
Tyler Warren could have been above him at times.
Yeah, Tyler Warren could have been above. Yeah. He's going to go to wide receiver 1.
Yep.
That's what he's going to be this season. So if the volume doesn't take a huge step forward, but the efficiency takes a step back because now he's facing tougher cornerback 1s, more coverage, double coverage, safety over the top. That's a problem for Alec Pierce. That efficiency number drops.
Yeah, and we'll see that here towards the end of the show. He was not a volume guy. He was a efficiency guy. So what changes this year? It'll be intriguing to see.
Jameson Williams outscoring Amon-Ra St. Brown as we make our way into tier 2 is a little bit of a shock. Amon-Ra St. Brown, each of the last 2 seasons has been a tier 1 player. That takes a little bit of a step back this past season. Given how the offense played as a whole, I guess it's not a big shock that Amon-Ra St. Brown takes a little bit of a step back. But for Jameson Williams to jump above him, that was kind of crazy. I would still argue, though, that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a middle of the first round pick if you're looking for safety.
And no, Kyle, I totally agree. I am still perfectly fine taking Amon-Ra St. Brown in the middle to the end of the first round. The dude is just safe, right? He may not have finished overly high in a lot of efficiency metrics, but the dude's sitting right here towards the top of tier 2. Even though Jameson Williams is ahead of him, I will take the volume of Amon-Ra St. Brown with this is still above average efficiency all day long at the end of the first round because nothing's really going to change this year compared to years past. I'm fine with him being a first round pick.
Parker Washington being here in the middle of tier 2, like it either means that Brian Thomas Jr. is cooked in Jacksonville and needs to be traded, or Parker Washington is going to be a huge disappointment this season. I don't really see any in between there. I think it's going to be Jacoby Myers and then Parker Washington or Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think that offense has the ability to sustain 3 wide receivers and Brenton Strange and have Bichelle Tootin breakout.
And how much do they use Travis Hunter on offense?
And Travis Hunter. Can't forget about it, even though I just did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, there's so many options in a high-powered offense. I don't know if I want to rely on Parker Washington as a late round sleeper pick, though. I can see why he was the late season binky of Trevor Lawrence last year.
Yeah, he absolutely was. Zay Flowers, we've talked about. T. Higgins, we've talked about. Jalen Waddle, we've not really talked about as of yet. When I go through the difference between where people were at in volume compared to efficiency, he's one of the biggest risers. Jalen Waddle, to me, almost makes me want to be out on really everybody
Pretty much.
in Denver, except for Bo Nix, who you can get super late.
Yeah, and he may be the only winner when it comes to fantasy in Denver. As long as he's healthy, having Cortland Sutton, Jalen Waddle, Troy Franklin, we got Pat Bryant, we got a backfield with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. I mean, we have
and they drafted what's-his-face, too, that I can't even think of his name right now.
Who's what's-his-face?
The pass catching back.
I'm gonna let you figure this one out because this.
Come on,
no, you can't Google it. Are you Googling? I have to
because I can't think of it right now.
What? I mean,
from Washington, running back from Washington.
Yep. What's his name, Kyle?
Jonah Coleman.
There you go. Because I know you like yourself some Jonah Coleman because we've talked about Jonah Coleman in a video like a week or two. There you go. We'll throw it in there. Yeah, that is another weapon in an offense for the passing game. Jalen Waddle may not have the massive season because he's splitting targets, but he's enough of a addition to this offense where it could take away the ceiling of everyone.
2 top 10 guys after that, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, both of these guys being drafted as such. I think both of their efficiencies get a little bit better next season.
Dealt with injuries last year, both of them.
Yeah, both of them dealt with injuries last year. Lamb still has pick-ins. London doesn't have nearly that type of person that he needs to compete with because I don't consider Kyle Pitts that type of player. Moving on to tier 3, DK Metcalf here. I don't want to say it's shocking because I don't think it is if you watched him play football last year, but I think that's also what you're getting with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback.
Yeah, I don't see this really improving, especially after the addition of Michael Pittman. I think it's just a little bit more inconsistencies from week to week.
A.J. Brown, a big drop in consistency from what we've seen in previous years. Jamar Chase was as well. Again, if A.J. Brown is traded, as of this recording, has not been. We'll talk about that. Jamar Chase, maybe if Joe Burrow can stay healthy for a full season, we see this number jump back up. The transition, Joe Burrow didn't play great to start the season, then gets hurt. Then you had Joe Flacco. Then he ends up playing well. So maybe that has something to do with it. Devontae Adams made his living in the red zone last year, so it doesn't shock me that he's this low because he wasn't catching many passes outside of being inside the 20.
Nope.
Ted McMillan's got to get better.
Which is crazy because Ted finished top 15 overall last year. It's not like he had a bad year.
Yep.
But I kind of view this as room to grow on what was a rookie year as a top 15 player. Seen where he had some deficiencies. If he can fix some of these, he could be a top 12 wide receiver this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we did our mock the other day, I took him as my wide receiver 1 in round 3, and I didn't hate it. A lot of people hated it, but you can see the potential. Michael Wilson, not super shocking either, being all the way down here. It wouldn't shock me if he finishes in this area as well. I also wouldn't be shocked if he sees less volume this year. I don't really know what to expect from that offense. To me, I don't really want to invest in Michael Wilson. Something that made him so intriguing last year was the fact that you got him off the waiver wire.
Off waivers, yeah.
You're not going to get that type of value with him this year.
No.
Cortland Sutton being well behind Jalen Waddle. Cortland Sutton's going to be one of the biggest fallers from volume to efficiency. This is one of the reasons why it's very concerning to try and draft him. Even Devontae Smith being this low for a guy that people have so adamantly defended over the years, some of it makes sense. But for a guy that hasn't gotten a ton of volume, I am a little shocked that his efficiency is not better.
I think probably some of the biggest issues is separating real life football from fantasy football. Devontae Smith is a real life, solid, above average wide receiver. It's just in an offense that is so stacked, it's hard for him to be consistent. And when you have some inefficiencies, and inconsistent volume, that's what makes you a headache in fantasy football. Not so much for real football, because it's just another weapon for Jalen Hurts, but this is part of the reason why we have the headaches we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on, like Chris Olave, another reason why I've got some concerns with Jordan Tyson being there. Still love Chris Olave. He's just, it's going to be a hefty price to pay for a guy that was not really efficient last year.
He needs volume. He needs it.
He needs volume. Juwan Jennings here, a little bit lower. I mean, that's not a shock. Emeka Ibuka, we kind of saw it in some of the statistics. If you can get a little bit more consistent with catches, I think if he can not have nearly as many drops this year, we see this efficiency get more towards tier 2. Locking into the last tier here, I don't love this for Ladd McConkey.
I don't either, but no Keenan Allen has to help, right?
I would think.
I mean, that's all I got, Kyle. That's the only thing I got, is that there's no Keenan Allen, which means we see a lot more Ladd in the slot. Maybe he's a little bit more efficient there. Adding Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator could only help.
Offensive line being healthy. Allowing Justin Herbert to stay upright. Like, all these things will help Ladd. I am not convinced that the Ladd we saw last year is just what we're going to see from here on out. I think they believe in him too much to like go away for multiple seasons. Like, I think they saw last year as like, man, what did we do? Look what he did his rookie year. Look what he did towards the end of the year in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden we just abandoned the guy for Keenan Allen. Well, Keenan Allen's gone now, so that you got to think that they're going back to McConkey. Yeah, Justin Jefferson lower. Obviously, we've talked about those struggles. Not really a shock to see Deebo Samuel this low. Not going to really go into him because he doesn't have a home either at this point. Wan'Dale Robinson, this isn't a shock for anybody, even for us who the last couple of seasons has been like, Wan'Dale Robinson's a great value to flex. He catches the ball where it's thrown, and that's basically about it.
Yeah, and that's why we drafted him, was the volume, not the efficiency.
Not a ton of touchdowns.
He's a PPR guy. He's going to rack up his points just by catching the ball, even though it may only be for 3 yards.
Michael Pittman Jr. to me is going to be a guy that can easily get to tier 2 with Aaron Rodgers, because I think Michael Pittman Jr.'s skill set matches Aaron Rodgers at his current stage of his career way better than DK Metcalf.
I would agree with that. I think he could become like the safety valve underneath, not so much the guy that they need to stretch the field and throw deep balls to. 100% agree.
Real quick before we wrap up the video, we're going to touch base on the guys that were the biggest changers from the volume to the efficiency video. The guys at the very top, the guys that had the biggest jump: Alec Pierce, Stephon Diggs, Parker Washington, Jalen Waddle. Huge jumps in terms of what we saw from their volume to what we saw to their efficiency. Jalen Waddle fits well in Denver. One of the reasons why we're worried about Cortland Sutton now at this point. Parker Washington is interesting. Alec Pierce taking such a big jump really is not a shock. But I think also there's a lot of unknowns still with him at this point. Some of the guys that take the biggest falls. Jalen Waddle took one of the biggest jumps. Cortland Sutton was the biggest faller. Minus 22 spots from where he finished in volume monsters to insane efficiency. Chris Olave, negative 17 spots. Another, again, why I have concerns about him. Jamar Chase, this is the biggest drop that we have seen him. This is a super interesting one. I don't expect it to mirror that next year, though. I don't.
It has to be just because of the amount of targets that he saw. You know, I mean, it has to be that number was just so high that he couldn't produce.
And some of them weren't great targets either.
Exactly. Some of them were not exactly catchable, great targets. But last year, 185 targets? I mean, he still brought in 125 balls for 1,400 yards, but 185 is a large number to divide by when you're getting some of these metrics here. And I think it just brought him down. I mean, if you look at the year before, he had 1,700 yards with 175 targets, but he's been at 1,200 yards at 145 targets. If he can lose 40 targets but gain more efficiency, I'm totally fine with that from a fantasy perspective.
Hell Iron Nation, that is going to wrap up insane efficiency for the wide receiver position. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, hype it up, all of those things. Make sure you do it before you leave here. Obviously, stay safe and healthy, but maybe the most important things, if you're seeing 185 balls a year, maybe you need to rethink your life choices.
I've never seen that many balls in a year, Kyle. So therefore, we are on the straight and narrow. We're good.
We're all set here.
All right.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.